Hey guys, I know it's been a long time since I've made a video, but I've been crazy taking care of baby Amelia and things have just been a little bit more complicated than we were anticipating. She's been dealing with colic and whatnot. But today she's taking a nap. My husband's taking a nap with her, so I'm going to try and do a video about the labor and delivery story. Now, I'm sure anyone who's pregnant has heard a million horror stories about people how they hated their labor, about how awful it was, about how they almost died, and there are a lot of scary stories like that, and those are legitimate experiences. But I also wanted to share kind of my story because I really actually enjoyed labor and delivery and thought it was the best part of the whole pregnancy. Now, for those of you who have been following along for a while, you're probably aware that before this pregnancy I had 3 miscarriages. And they were all first trimester miscarriages, so they were all fairly early on, but it was still really anxiety inducing for me throughout the entire pregnancy because I kind of kept expecting to lose it, as that's like the only experience I'd had beforehand was losing pregnancies. So I was a little bit anxious about that. And I also had bleeding throughout the whole first trimester, and just I was a little bit nervous, to say the least. And also towards the end, if you followed along with my pregnancy updates week by week, about week 35 I started having cramps that were contractions, and at one point they gave me a medicine that in France it's called Postpartum to reduce the contractions because they didn't want me to deliver at 35 weeks. Of course, they wanted me to hold out a little bit longer. And those contractions, they did not go away with the Postpartum. I personally kind of am starting to think Postpartum is a placebo. It didn't work at all whatsoever, and I had a couple doctors afterwards tell me, they're like, oh, you kind of have to believe it's going to work for it to work. And I was like, oh, it's one of those. So those contractions, they just continued on all the way up until I delivered at 41 weeks. It was really frustrating because these were not irregular Braxton Hicks contractions. They were coming every 2 to 3 minutes, and they were lasting for at least a minute and a half, sometimes 2 minutes. So sometimes I would finish a contraction and be like, whew, breathing down because it was finally letting up, and then just be like, because it was starting up again. And I would have episodes like that that would last 6 to 7 hours, sometimes just 2 to 3 hours. And I kept talking to like doctors and midwives and stuff, and every time they kept telling me, oh yeah, Braxton Hicks, they can be painful sometimes. And I'm like, I've been in pain for weeks, like what is going on? And so I was really disappointed when I went past the 40-week mark because I've been having so many contractions. I was thinking something must be happening, something's going on down there, it's gonna happen soon, but then it just wouldn't come. So Friday, April 3rd, I went in for my official post-term appointment at the hospital that they do, and that was with a really nice midwife. I started talking to her. I was like, I'm in so much, like, psychologically I can't handle this anymore, these fake contractions, they're driving me bonkers. And she's like, oh, don't worry, I bet they're opening up your cervix. And then she went and she did the check, and she was like, I'm sorry, I can't even give you a membrane sweep, you're just so closed up. And and I started talking to her about the possibility. I'm like, okay, so if I go over, and if it goes over to the 42 weeks, what about induction? And we started talking about the possibility of inducing. And basically she told me, she's like, your body is just so not ready to deliver that if we tried to induce you right now, it would kind of be a catastrophe. I just went home and I started crying. And my husband was kind of disappointed too because he was hoping that things would get going a little bit more quickly. And just nothing was happening. That same day at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I started having like mini contractions that were nowhere near as painful as what I'd been having periodically throughout the last 6 weeks. Just, like mini like tightening of my stomach and muscles and such. And all of a sudden I felt this overwhelming need to sleep. And it was just so like all of a sudden just hit me, and my husband was home. And so I said, Laurent, we have to go to bed now. And he's like, I'm not really tired. And I was like, we need a nap. And he was like, okay. So he was just like, well, we'll follow the crazy pregnancy lady and we'll go take naps now. And I slept until 9 that night, and I woke up with pretty painful contractions. Again, I'd already had worse, so for me this was just regular, normal. And I started timing them. They were coming regularly every 2 to 3 minutes, just like they had in all the other episodes that I've been having for the last 6 weeks. Nothing out of the ordinary. They were as painful as always, and I was just started getting really like ticked off because I was so sick of these fake episodes. I couldn't handle it anymore. 6 weeks is a really long time to be contracting like that, and plus you're feeling big and large, and like right towards the end my feet got swollen. I only had one pair of shoes that fit. I just was, and they hurt when I wore them. I was very, very uncomfortable, and I just got in the bath. I poured myself a nice really warm bath, and all night long I just kept, like, when it would get too cold I would empty a bit of water and add some more hot water because the contractions were hurting, and that was the only thing that kind of softened them, I guess. Softened the blow was being in a bathtub. And it's about 4 in the morning. I went and I woke up Laurent and I was like, okay, if these don't stop by 5 a.m. we're going into the hospital, and I'm going to beg them for an induction because I honestly, I cannot. I don't care if they take this baby out by C-section. I don't care if they pull her out of my mouth at this point. She just out. She needs to come. She needs to get out of here. Like, I can't handle this. I'm at 41 weeks today. Baby is well cooked, and I am all done with this game. All done. And 5 o'clock came and I was still having these contractions, the same ones. But once again, they still weren't as painful as other contractions that I'd had earlier on. So I was thinking, it's like, this is another false alarm, but it's lasting a really long time. And I'm going to try and go to the hospital before it stops so that maybe they can see on the monitoring what's going on, and they'll be able to at least give me medicine to stop it or something. We get to the hospital. It's 5:15, something like that in the morning. I tell the lady that what's been going on. I'm like, hey, I've been having really frequent contractions since about 9 o'clock last night. And I told her, I was like, I'm all done. I just need you to, we need to get the baby out now. And I'm at 41 weeks, just get it out. And she was really nice. I'm sure she's used to a lot of impatient women who are at the end of their pregnancy. She was super sweet, and she got us into a room. She's like, before we can take you in, we have to check your cervix and we have to monitor you and see how your contractions are doing. And she checked my cervix and was like, she's like, yeah, it doesn't, you're definitely not where you need to be delivering today, but let's just check how your contractions are on the monitor, and I'll come back in an hour and maybe you'll be dilated to 3 centimeters and we can keep you. And I was like, yes, hoping. I was like, please let that happen. And she came back an hour later and she was like, I'm so sorry, you barely dilated. And I was just, this point I was like, no, you cannot send me home. Like, I have not slept since yesterday. Since I took a nap yesterday afternoon, I am exhausted. These contractions, they aren't stopping. I just need, like, relief. And she was, oh, sweetie, we cannot send you home. And she showed me the monitoring that we had up in the corner of my room. She pointed to the monitoring that corresponded with my room. She goes, this is you. And you see your contractions, how they're going up like this? So your contractions are lasting longer and coming much closer together than the woman next door who is 10 centimeters and pushing right now. So we cannot send you home. It might be bad for baby, and so we're going to keep you here on monitoring. And if within the next 2 or 3 hours your body doesn't do the work by yourself, we're going to break your waters, and after that, if we have to, we'll add a few contractions artificially, but we can't send you home at this point because it might be dangerous for the baby. This is apparently not a really great thing to be having that many contractions that long and that frequently when even if you're at full term. It's not always the safest for baby, and you should probably be on monitoring. Apparently, nobody told me that. They just kept saying, oh, sweetie, you'll know when it's the real thing. I would just like to say that I had no idea when it was the real thing, like 0, because about 2 hours later, they came back and she was like, you are dilating nicely, and my daytime midwife is going to take over now and I'm going home, but I wish you the best of luck, and if you can get to 1 more centimeter, we will be able to give you an epidural. Right about half an hour later, like after I'd met the new midwife and everything, that's when like the really, really, really painful contractions started and my body started kicking into gear. It was super painful, definitely could feel like, you know, like hips and muscles and things being displaced. But I only had to deal with that for an hour because when she came back in, she was like, good news, you're ready for an epidural. And I was just so relieved, very excited. The guys who gave it to me were super funny, they were super nice, it worked wonderfully, and within 15 minutes I was pain-free. It was just, oh, it was wonderful. I think I was in the hospital for something like, let's see, 9 a.m. I think I got my epidural around 9 a.m. and I ended up delivering around 3:30. So about like 6.5 hours that I had the epidural and that things were great. And it seemed to just fly by because I had, you have all the adrenaline. My midwife was super supportive and super nice and was very much listening to what I needed and was very willing to help. She was clearly competent. The people who put in the epidural, like, had a lot of confidence in them. The whole team was just very reassuring, I guess. And I think that makes such a huge difference. The people that you have around you while you're delivering can make a huge, huge difference if you just trust, like, in the people who are taking care of you. As soon as I got the epidural, I just started dilating like crazy. Like, just, it went much more smoothly. It was like textbook. I think for your first pregnancy, you're supposed to dilate 1 centimeter per hour, and afterwards I was just, you know, everything was going exactly as it should be, and it wasn't taking a super long time like it was before I got the epidural. And oh, it was just wonderful, and I got to chat with my husband, and we were excited, and she told me, she's like, you should probably try to sleep since you didn't sleep at all last night because you'll need a lot of energy towards the end. But honestly, there was so much adrenaline pumping, there was no way I was sleeping. And then there was a moment when she came in towards the end, she's like, hey, you should be probably getting towards 10 centimeters now. So this is your first pregnancy, we're going to give you time so the baby can, you know, go down a little bit. And I'll come back in and check on you. And she came back in, she's like, are you feeling the urge to push? And I was like, I feel like my body's pushing all by itself. I was like, I don't feel the urge to push, but I feel like it's happening whether I want it to or not. And she was like, contractions will do that. And so then she's like, let's see if you're at 10 centimeters. And she like lifted up the little drape thingy. And she was like, there's hair, here we go. She told me, she's like, all right, we have 20 minutes to get this baby out. If we can't get it out, I'm gonna have to call the doctor and we'll probably have to use forceps. And I was really surprised by that because I was like, oh, I thought people pushed for a long time. And I didn't realize it, but apparently I'd been losing quite a bit of blood, and so she wanted to get the baby out before I'd lost too much, but she didn't tell me anything that would make me panic. So I started pushing and the head was coming out, and she's like, how big did they tell you this baby was going to be? She goes, oh sweetie, this is not a 7-pounder. This is gonna be a big baby. I need you to really push. And so I gave a big push and the head came out. She's like, okay, one more huge push for the shoulders. I think this is gonna be a big one. You're gonna have a hard time getting the shoulders out. And like I pushed just like a little bit and out came the whole baby. And she was a little surprised. She goes, oh, okay. No, actually she's not that big. She was 3.6 kilos, I believe, 7 pounds, 12 ounces. Absolutely adorable. She did not have any vernix whatsoever. You know, that white, like, I don't know, it's not really cause she's like waxy looking stuff. Babies are born with all of their skin. She didn't have any of that whatsoever, and they told me that's because she was very full term, a very, very full term baby, and so she just absorbed it all naturally. So my husband got to hold her first, and then they fast forwarded me and they put her on my chest, and I was like, oh. And you know how a lot of people, they tell you that as soon as they put the baby on their chest, they have that like aha moment of like, this is it, this is like the most magical moment of my whole life. I'm gonna be honest, I loved my baby instantly. We'd wanted a baby for so long, but I didn't have that like magic moment until 2 or 3 days later while I was taking care of her in the middle of the night. The attachments are things that they build over time. And some moms feel really guilty about like not having that instant like, aha, this is it, moment about their baby, but it's really common and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think a lot of moms could avoid guilt if they knew how common it was for that real attachment to take a little bit of time. I did have an episiotomy right towards the end, and I didn't even quite realize it while it was happening, but I didn't feel a thing once again. And the midwife kept apologizing afterwards. She was like, I was trying so hard to make it so you wouldn't have to have one, and you really, really needed one. Apparently in this hospital they're trying really hard to reduce the number they do because they don't want to give them out unnecessarily. And so I had that, I needed it, no problem. Couldn't feel a thing. They sewed me back up afterwards, and then they brought back in baby to try and nurse. And I remember holding her and going like, I don't remember anything we learned in my class about nursing. I don't remember anything at all. I'm thinking, having like a moment of like kind of panic, like I'm not gonna be able to feed my baby. This little girl is a champion eater. Her nursing instincts kicked in right away. She knew what she was doing even though I didn't, and we were fine. Overall, I really liked my experience. I felt that people were competent. I had really good support, and I just felt at peace with the whole thing. And I would definitely do it again. Pregnancy, I don't know, but giving birth, that was fine. The thing about giving birth is that it only really lasts like a day or two, depending on how long it lasts for you. But pregnancy lasts like 9 months. I would take giving birth over pregnancy any day. But then on the other hand, I know people who felt like Mother Earth goddesses while they were pregnant, and they never felt better or healthier in their whole life, and they were like meant to do this, and they had beautiful pregnancies. So to each her own, we all have different experiences. This is mine, this is how I felt about it. I hope you are all having a wonderful, wonderful day. Please subscribe if you would like to see more videos, and we will chat later. Ciao.